right, now our big economic week continues. So we've had a lot of things going on this week, the different economic reports and more. We've seen some surprises, some things that the market shrugged off, and as well as some oh wells. And we've also had some negative and positive surprises going forward with what we had during this big economic week. To start off with just the reports, what we had on tap is on July 29th, you had the consumer confidence report that came out, and that was relatively a negative. The job openings report came out for June. It's kind of a mixed bag. It came out not as strong as we would hope. It was a little bit off of what I think the expectations were, if I'm not mistaken. But that was kind of a hope that, hey, that would induce the Fed to maybe do something here in July with that. So it wasn't with the news we wanted, but we were hoping it maybe would prompt the Fed to take a little bit deeper look in that. And then on Wednesday, the Fed meeting was happening. It started on Tuesday, of course, but the GDP index came out, was a positive. Pending home sales was kind of a negative. But then the interest rate decision and the press conference, well, we stayed the same. No movement yet, no change. Kind of a meh. Hoping for September. We're not sure yet. No one's sure yet. No one knows what's going to happen, but we had those factors come into play. We were hoping for a little bit more. We got some good insight to what they're thinking, but one of the interesting things that we saw, of course, is I think, since was it 1939 or 1950? I can't remember. But two of the governors on the Fed were against the vote that came out to stay the same. And I think that was the highest it's been during that time frame since I can't remember if it was 1939 or 1959. But yeah, that was very interesting that two I don't want to say dissented like they do in the Supreme Court, but they voted for the rate cut and not staying the same. Whereas the other governors did. So there's kind of a conflict there going on, and we'll have to wait and see what happens in September going forward. Then today we had the initial jobless claims. The initial jobless claims increased slightly, not really a positive. And then we had the core PCE index, and we found out that, of course, inflation increased slightly in June, not what we were hoping for. And tomorrow we have the U.S. employment and unemployment rate, I should say, wage reports, construction spending and sentiment, and the July auto sales report. I think a lot of people are looking on that. A very interesting thing. Let's move on to the next slide, I should say first. But a very interesting thing is we have a slew of earnings coming out. And we have a slew of earnings that have just been released probably within the past 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to take a look at those maybe the next 10 or 15 minutes. But we had a strong showing from Meta and Microsoft this week, which helped buoy up the market, of course. We've got Apple, Amazon, COIN, and many others. We had MasterCard today. Didn't really move too much, but it moved positive when the market initially opened negative. But we've got many others coming out and still more next week. So we're keeping a strong eye on that. We're going to check in with Apple and with Amazon in just a little bit. But an interesting thing was Meta and Microsoft, they had jumped up after hours last night when I sent the email regarding some of the recap of this big economic week we're having and the invitation to today's webinar. And initially, Ford was down about 3.5% or almost 4% at some points between 4:45 and 5 o'clock after hours last night with their earnings. And I can't remember if it was a $800 million cost they think they incurred due to, the tariff discussion, the tariffs, trying to get metals in, trying to get the parts in from overseas and things of that nature. And then today they were up about 1.5% or 6%, or I'm sorry, 1.5 or 1.6% at the open. So it was very, very strange that they still went positive at that point, even with that little glitch in when the after hours they were underwater. And the market initially opened underwater too, but then it went back and forth, as did the VIX during the trading day. So a lot going on. A lot has happened. We've got a lot, as I mentioned, that we're going to pay attention to tomorrow with the auto sales, construction, and the other job unemployment rate, I should say. And we're going to have some more strong earnings coming out and see how they react with the market. So a lot is indeed going on. And of course, we've been keeping an eye on it for you. We've been letting you know what we've been looking at. And of course, some other things that we did in preparation of that. We're going to go ahead and change our screen now. And I'm just going to link over to our YouTube channel real quick. And of course, you can check out all our recent videos, of course, and everything like that. But on our playlist, we updated, meant to do this a couple weeks ago, but we updated our playlist here. We added a new playlist from some of our popular 9 videos, market hedges for unexpected event earnings and more, with discussion of, as you can see, review of VIX as a market hedge, bear put debit spread versus buying puts on SPY or QQQ versus volatility plays, and much more. So that's a new playlist you can check out, market hedges for unexpected events and earnings, in addition to many others, technical analysis on power options, discussions on volatility, the stock, individual stocks, and of course the market as well. Different strategies, bull call debit spreads, calendar call spreads, bear puts, bear calls, bull puts. Earnings discussion, of course, we added a few more videos to our earnings discussions, a few recent videos because we're going through that earnings cycle. So that's always a good playlist to check out as well. So for further education on, hey, I'm a little spooked by the market, I'm a little bit spooked on these economic news that are coming out, check out that market hedges for unexpected events, earnings, and more. And if you're looking to do specific earnings plays, well, you probably have a strategy already set in mind. But if you want to take some other considerations, take some other ideas, check out the full playlist here for earnings discussion, where we added an extra, I think, 2 or 3 videos there. So now it's a total of 11 videos on our earnings discussions here on our YouTube channel at Power Options. And of course, you watch any of these videos, you've got any questions, you've got any thoughts, hey, simply go ahead and post a comment and we'll get back to you real quick. As I mentioned, we did see SPX drop a little bit today. It was up in midday, pulled back a little bit. The VIX initially came down, went back up, came back down, and now it's back up again at 1664. So it's up about 7.5% from where it was before the close. VIX calls are a reasonable play, but not something that maybe you want to do consistently. When you see those sell warnings start to appear on the market sentiment tool and the VIX is maybe down to 15, maybe a little bit of low 15, it's not a bad idea to add a few contracts, VIX calls slightly out of the money, maybe a 0.3 delta, and maybe 8, 9, 10% out of the money, looking 30, 45 days out of time to give yourself some time to add as an extra market hedge. Now, all my stocks in the married put portfolio took kind of a hit today, unfortunately. Now, Kraft reported its earnings 2 days ago. Caesars being affected by its by sort of the gambling rules that are in the new bill. We talked about that last week, but also their earnings came out too, and they weren't as favorable. They were favorable at the time, and Caesars went up a little bit, but then the thought came in, what is happening here? Why would something like Caesars fall after they had a pretty decent earnings a couple days ago? And the reason why is that consumer confidence we mentioned during this big economic week. What's going to get hurt the most? If people aren't confident in the market, the interest rate stayed the same. Well, it's the discretionary spending, right? Doing the extra things, doing the extra trips. I didn't see what CCL did today or some of the other cruise lines. Let's just take a look. But the idea when the consumer confidence drops is Carnival, you expect to pull back, even though it's interesting. I saw another article today that the European markets, the travel is increasing, going through the different leisure things in Europe and everything else. But here in the United States, it's actually lower than expected. They expected more of a jump for travel, the cruise lines, that kind of discretionary spending, but it's actually pulled back a little bit in the US, but it's actually much higher in Europe. It's exceeding expectations a little bit in Europe going to other places. So that was kind of interesting. And of course, the gold took a hit. A lot of the miners took a hit, as we saw. That was due to the tariffs. Copper took a huge hit. Freeport McMoRan. I don't even know if it's still FCX. I think it is. Let's take a look here. Okay, Freeport was up today, but they took a big hit yesterday as well. Some of the other miners and even some of the uranium stocks, actually, due to the fact that copper and certain other minerals were not going to be included in the sort of, what do you call it, the discount tariff. So when we had the EU and made the deal on the tariffs with the 15% on some items and with the promise of investment from the EU of 500 or 600 billion or so over the next X years into energy prospects here in America. But then they said it's not going to include copper or steel or anything like that. Well, a lot of those took a huge hit. I don't think it was steel. I apologize, but it was copper, uranium, it was some of the other ones, and it took a huge hit. So you took a 4 or 5 point hit here. Comes back up today, maybe some buying back after the sellers are closing out their positions for profit. But the miners took a big hit. So my AGI position, I'm sorry, that I'm in as a married put on radioactive trading has been falling recently, but I've got a good low risk on the position. We're holding a 28 strike put with a max of a 4% risk. We're going to wait for this to bottom and adjust that as well. And then some of the outdoors ones, okay, Planet Fitness, I actually want this to drop, but their earnings are coming up soon. I've got a 120 call sold against it, which I'm probably going to close soon as well. But we promised we would take a look here. Let's see what AMZN did today. Let's just go to the quotes page. And we know the earnings came out today, 7:31 after market. And I'm just going to link very quickly. Closed at 234.11. So without looking at the details, let's just go ahead to the news. I'm going to link us to Yahoo News real quick. Ooh, down 2%. Okay. Apple tops estimates, Amazon slips, Reddit surges. All right, so let's take a look at those two. So Amazon took a slip today. They didn't quite meet their earnings. We could delve deeper into it here. But let's take a look at what I mentioned. We want to take a look at Apple and see where Apple has moved up to in our after hours after they released their earnings today. All right. And they're not up by too much. Sorry, folks. They're up 243. They're up about 1.1%. Again, you see that Apple tops estimates. Now, Reddit, RDDT, if I'm not mistaken. There it is. Oh, wow. Take a look at that. So we closed today at 160.59. Currently, after hours, we're up to 183. It's up. Go away. Go away. There we go. We're up about 14%, plus 22.61. So Reddit has been doing really strong with their advertising. Fastest quarterly revenue growth in 3 years. So their advertising revenue must be going through the roof. And of course, you still have the meme stock craze. We saw a couple meme stocks in the last week that have come up as well. And one of the other ones that was mentioned was COIN, COIN, of course, following Bitcoin. I think their earnings today. Okay, so that's not doing too strong. So we've got a mixed bag of the big ones coming out. Little gain here, little drop here. Big gain in Reddit after hours. Significant loss, I'd say 7%, 6.5% in COIN. So we've got a mixed bag here. Some of the big ones that reported earnings. And and misses on revenue. Shares are falling. Okay. All right. So that's what we've got there. That's what we're going to expect in the morning. We're going to be digesting that. And some of the movements there, small, and the big stocks, a small loss, small gain. And I'm going to say a huge surprise on Reddit, as we saw there, because it just met and, had that quarter of strong thing the first time in 3 years. So that's massively important for them and their revenue and advertising that they're doing over there. Could be related to the meme stocks, could be related to other smart business planning that they did, and not seeing so much what we were hoping for in COIN. MasterCard released this morning before the market, didn't really have much of a movement, but, they were up today mostly with the market down. So that probably had a bigger move. And then, of course, we can take a look at more upcoming earnings announcements. These were the ones before the market. Shake Shack down 14.6%. Baxter down 22%. Anheuser-Busch down another 13%. Reddit, of course, was after hours, so it's not got that in. And then tomorrow, what have we got? There we go. Some other ones after market I'm just looking for. Not AES. Paramount Global. That should be interesting. Check that one too. And there's Apple, as we mentioned. Now, tomorrow before market. I'm sorry, not tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow before market. Colgate Palmolive, CBOE, Moderna. I'm not expecting too much there, honestly, but I can make a liar. So EchoStar. going before market tomorrow as well. So we're going to see some other big ones there, big companies and sort of trending companies. But let's go to page 3. What have we got before market? Exxon, big one. Chevron, big one. Berkshire, big one. All right. And then starting on Monday, of course, starting on Monday, 8-4, Palantir. That's what I was looking for. Aftermarket, Palantir. That's going to be a big one. Vertex, on semiconductor. When I was watch, used to be a married put position I had. Wayfair. So we still got some big earnings. Arista, Super Microcomputer, SMCI has been all over the place in the last year. Pfizer, DuPont, Chemours, AMD, 805 aftermarket. So still some big stocks, still some big opportunities. You know, some of the big things like Chevron and Exxon, you might not expect a big movement on, but some of these tech ones, ON, Transocean possibly too, Wayfair, in the retail sector, SMCI, as I mentioned, big companies here to give us a bellwether of how the market's handling things, and AMD, the big tech company, they're all coming out next week in the next few days. So always something to keep an eye on. And again, always a potential play to maybe look into. And as I mentioned, you could take a look at our earnings discussions there for ideas on earnings plays going forward.